All right. Hi, I'm Erin Siever. Some of you know me, some of you have never seen me before. But I want you to understand that I'm not a professional blogger or speaker. I'm just a homeschool mom, and I'm here to talk to you about what it is to start homeschooling. I'm with my friend Majal. Say hi, Majal.
Hi.
She's also a homeschool mom, and she's facilitating our meeting because we're using Zoom.
Yes.
What a great way to reach out to people without too much contact these days. All right, so I've noticed a lot of people are interested in homeschool these days. I don't know if you've noticed that, Mahal.
Yes, a lot of new members in our group, in our homeschool group. Yes,
a lot more members in our Angelina Home Educators group, and we want to try and help you have a good start to that. So today I'm going to speak to you about what it is to just get started, what my first couple of years looked like, programs that are available, and different methodologies. And I'm not going to answer all of your questions, just so you know. I'm just going to try and help you start researching what you need, not everything, because that's overwhelming. And homeschooling can look very overwhelming at first. So the number one question we get from new homeschoolers is, what curriculum do I use? Well, there are several. There are a bunch of curriculums. And guess what? They're all good. Let me just start with that. None of them are terrible. Some of them work for some families, and some of them do not work for those families. So they're just different. Everybody has their different style. And I think that's the place to start, is to know your family's style. So I'm going to talk about 5 different methods, is what they're called. And then I'll tell you what I use, but Mahal will tell you what she does. But it's really up to you. So as I go through these, see what would work in your mind, what would work best for your family. The first one is the traditional approach. It's called traditional homeschooling or traditional schooling. It is basically school at home. So it is what you did during those 2 months of quarantine when you were doing school online. It's working through 5 or 6 different subjects, and each subject has its own set of workbooks and teachers' guides, and you just work through 5 or 6 workbooks or a workbook for each subject. And that's about it. It follows the standardized, milestones or requirements for the state. The next one is called a classical approach. It's classical because it looks back to the Greeks and Romans and how they taught their kids in a small setting. So it recognizes that children go through a developmental process, and it tries to really hone in on those stages of development. It's called the trivium. And so the younger grades go through what is called the grammar stage, where they learn a lot of memorization, a lot of repetition and songs. Veritas Press is one that comes to mind. That's a classical approach. Thinking back to the traditional approach, I'm trying to remember, is Sunlight a traditional program?
No, they're more of a classical.
Oh, okay, they're more of a classical.
Memoria Press, yeah.
Yeah, okay, Memoria Press. All right, so Veritas Press, Memoria Press, and Sunlight all fit under that classical. I would say Abeka, maybe, and Bob Jones would be more of the traditional.
Traditional, yeah. But BJU, Abeka, there's Horizon, and the Alpha Omega. I think they're more of the traditional one.
Right. So that kind of gives you an idea of where those different curriculums, where they fit. So So I was talking about the 3 stages of classical that classical goes through. So your elementary years are in the grammar stage. Your middle school years are called the dialectic stage, where they do a lot of debate and reasoning. And then the last stage, which is more the high school years, that's the rhetoric stage, where they give discourse. They have to prove their ideas. So it takes kids through. It's very interesting, and I think it's a very good approach. It's one of the main things that makes it stand out is the Latin that is taught. Latin is taught through all stages of the classical education. And if you were looking for a co-op, you would look for classical conversations or CC. And so that's classical. Another approach is unschooling, and they kind of get a bad rap, unfortunately, among traditional schoolers and public schoolers. They're probably the most stereotypical homeschooler that people think of is this unschooling. But let me tell you what it is it's an approach where the parent studies the child. And whatever the child is most interested in, they allow their interest to kind of move the education. And what the parents do is they lay out a buffet of education, of books and experiences for the child that might interest them. So that's unschooling in a nutshell. It's more involved than that because it is the most individualized program, I would say, of all of them, because you're not dragging the child along a school study. You're allowing the child to experience the world around them. Another one is called unit studies, where it really dives deep into different topics. If you've ever had your child in Mother's Day out or something like that, they do unit studies because every week is a new unit, and they study it very intensely. So math and reading and art, everything is kind of focused in on community helpers or Black History Month or metamorphosis and plant life. So each unit is kind of a focus. Unit studies are actually really, really great for that the preschool years, because for my preschool years, we did the ABCs. So it was a letter a week. And so everything we did was focused around the letter A for that first week. And by the way, if you do the ABCs, before you delve into it and say, I'm just going to go through the alphabet, A through Z, consider getting a reading program first so that you teach the letters in an order where kids can start putting them together to read. So one of those, so just be thinking ahead. If you've got a preschooler, consider getting All About Reading or All About Spelling, or one of those other reading programs that allows the child to absorb letters in an order that would be that they would naturally put them together to form those first words: God, cat, dog, put, those that they're going to use a lot when they're reading. Okay, and the last one is the method that I use. I'm knowledgeable about the other ones and I really appreciate them, but I use the Charlotte Mason method of teaching. Charlotte Mason was a teacher in the 1800s, and she taught one of those poor, neglected schools in England. The government didn't have a lot of hope for them, but she began an entirely new method of teaching. She assumed that children wanted to learn and could learn regardless of their social situation. She brought lots of books into the classroom, and she took kids out of the classroom into the outdoors. She did so they could do nature studies, journal about what they learned, and it's very high on electives. So that works very well for us because we tend to be off into the artsy, right brain type learning anyway. So journaling, walks, books that are interesting, and art, music are all kind of big points for that Charlotte Mason style. Mahal, what method do you use, or do you kind of bridge different?
Oh my goodness, it's like a combination of different things. But let me tell you, like throughout my journey as a homeschooling mom, the first year that I homeschooled, like I have a son that has autism, Axel, and you know, when I started, I pretty much, there's no like this special needs curriculum available, and so I have, it's probably a combination of 3, 4, and 5, the unschooling unit studies and Charlotte Mason approach, where I have to really look at him and say, okay, like, given the skills that he has and the level that he has right now in his reading, writing, you know, comprehension, you know, like what do I want to accomplish, you know, at this school year? And so, you know, the first time that I homeschooled, I think he was around 9 years old. And I just really want him to, you know, to really focus on reading and writing. And I mean, he was 9, but we have to start like from the basics. So, you know, so I have to like find ways, because like, you know, like if you have a special needs child, you know, like those set curriculums really kind of don't work for him. So Axel's a very visual learner, and he learns by really making everything big, you know, and making it simpler. So I may have a curriculum with me, but I don't follow it. I have to like either transfer it in a notebook and make it more colorful and make it more visual, make it more proprioceptive, where he can touch things to learn. And so it's a different, you know, like journey for me, but that's just kind of how, like, I just have to put stuff together depending on his skills, his level, and his interest. And then Tristan, so Tristan, you know, is my oldest boy, and I call it homeschooling 2.0. When I started with him, like I really kind of like sort of don't know what I'm doing, and so I did, number one, the traditional approach. I just did like a curriculum of mostly BJU, Bob Jones University. I love their curriculum, and it's just easier for me. Like I have to deal with Axel, and so the BJU has everything in it, and it's very structured. So that works so well for Tristan. And then the second year, again, at the start of the school year, I always say, what is my focus right now? And so, so for Tristan, we kind of pulled, you know, like he loves history and he loves math and English literature. So we kind of, you know, tried to kind of sort of center on those. We really didn't follow like a curriculum, but I pulled from who teaches, you know, who has like the best math that he likes. Like I love looking at the books, because it has to work for mom too, right? When we look at her, like it has to work for you and it has to work for the child too. So so yeah, it's kind of like, it's just, and that's the beauty of homeschooling. It's like you can look at your child and you can look at what are your goals this school year, and then choose a curriculum from that. And if you know, don't be so like bogged down with, oh my gosh, I have to do all of that back at first grade, or, you know, all of this, you know, third grade, and I haven't finished, you know, this, and it's already, you know, like end of the school year and I'm still doing like Halloween stuff, you know, like it's Christmas stuff. So, you know, again, it's the beauty of homeschooling, so you can kind of pick and choose. And so like, and then this year that Tristan, he'll be like this past school year, we did a lot of dual credits because he wanted, you know, be a lawyer. So we sort of ditched a lot of like the traditional, you know, classroom stuff, and really did more college work. So more on essay writing, researching, you know, all of that stuff. But yeah.
So you can graduate from homeschool.
Yeah. He actually, his goal is to graduate high school with a bachelor's degree in pre-law. So his
so amazing.
Yeah. He's working really hard, but he's working on it.
He's a hard worker. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I never did. Yeah. Thank you for telling me about y'all's homeschooling journey, or at least a little snippet because
Right.
I know it's long. That's a long testimony. And you took your sons out of private school, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And we started from the beginning. So my daughter, when she was turning 5, I had several friends who kind of helped me prepare for homeschooling. They kind of modeled it for me a little bit, which was wonderful. I think if you can go to somebody's home and watch how they do it, or just have a cup of coffee and then sit down and say, okay, this is what our day, an average day looks like. And they need to be honest, because there are very few average days. I mean, we have to be honest that most of the time we struggle to get through a beefy school day where we did everything. Everything on the list was checked off. But that we can talk about that. So when I started out, my daughter was 5, and then I had a 4-year-old daughter who wanted to learn to read so bad. And so she got scooped up and taken along that first kindergarten year. I also had a 2-year-old son and a 1-year-old daughter, and I was pregnant. And so I'm pretty sure. So that first year was a nightmare, if you can imagine. And we had puppies too. We had our 2 puppies, our corgi puppies. And I can remember, just for an example, one morning we were we had the Mondays really bad. And the Mondays are, we've had a wonderful weekend. Now we have to start back to school. Nobody wants to do that. But it was the letter C. And I remember this because it was the letter C. And I had their C's drawn out onto the construction paper. This was going to be, we were going to concentrate on it. And I was like, oh, all right, I was going to get something for them to glue onto their construction paper when the dog knocked over, or one of the kids knocked over the cereal box and spilled cereal all over the carpet in the playroom, which was also our schoolroom. And the dog starts coming over and eating the cornflakes, and I was like freaking out and thinking, and like, oh my gosh, I've got to vacuum all this up. And then I thought, wait a minute, this is brilliant. Cereal starts with C. So we got the glue and we glued it on. And I don't know if the kids remember that, but I remember that because honestly, my homeschooling journey has been a lot of making do with whatever the situation was. I'm a Christian, so faith plays a huge part in our homeschooling journey, and I really feel like training my children in faith, in my own faith, but also training them up in the faith is just as important as history and spelling, and more so, because honestly, if they're not being trained toward God, then they're not going to be trained toward education either, not in the way that I want. It will become a superficial, self-promoting education journey, and we didn't want that. But so there were so many days like that where I was just humbled, and I had to be, because I thought I had this. I have a bachelor's degree. I'm an educated woman. I know what I'm doing. I could do this job. I can be a teacher. I had plenty of education in how to do lesson plans, so I knew what I was doing. But it is extremely different teaching your own children. Even when you've done it from the start, I'll just be really honest. From the start, they did not want mommy teaching them. Sometimes they did when it was fun. But my son will come in today and he'll be like, oh, can we do something fun? And I'm like, what? You mean instead of the usual boring stuff that mommy cooks up? And he did. But so yeah, it's a challenge. And I want you to understand that it's going to be a challenge. Not that it can't be done, But I promise you, you will grow and you will learn a lot more through this journey than your kids, because you will remember those early years and the struggle that they were, and they won't. My third daughter, my youngest daughter, she said, "Mommy, you know, I just taught myself to read." And I was like, "Oh, really? Oh, you know, what was I doing all those years?" Oh, who was I teaching then? But she just figured she taught herself to read. That actually was a compliment to me, because it means that it came about pretty naturally and through the repetition. So even though she didn't remember all the steps, it meant that I had kind of done that pretty well, or we had worked well together, because that's the truth of it. It is a cooperation. So you're starting out this year, you're thinking about homeschooling, you're pretty committed to it. I hope that you and your spouse, if you're married, I hope that both of you are very committed to this, because I had the full support of my husband. He was the principal. I called him many times to get these kids straightened out so I could just go on to the next thing, because homeschool has been so much more than just teaching. It is parenting. It is parenting under the enemy's fire, and I needed his support. So if you don't have your spouse's support, let me say, stop right now. Yes, you can gather information, but do so gently and really seek your spouse's heart on this. Be reasonable. Talk to them in a don't be emotional about it, because we sure don't want you starting this journey out because you're afraid of what might happen otherwise. Let me tell you, the Lord will look over your children as you are looking out for them and training them up wherever they are. Homeschool is not a salvation. It's just an opportunity. It's a wonderful opportunity to really experience that education and be a part of that through that whole journey. So seek your spouse's support. Be on board with the same know, if you are single, yes, you can homeschool. You might have to make a few arrangements. I know that for some people, they need to move in with a family member. Maybe you need to move in with your mother or sister or an auntie, but that's possible. Or if your kids are older, that's great, because you can work and then you can do school during the hours when you're home, because homeschool doesn't take all day. This is not an 8-hour job. For most of us, it shouldn't be. Nobody's brain can work that hard, that long. There are some great articles that talk about how to manage your day and manage your time. And I would spend some time talking about that, but I can't. All I can say is there's only one of you, and you probably have multiple children. So make sure that you're spreading yourself out well. Get older children, because remember, homeschooling is mostly training your children in discipline. I feel like and I'm so glad I went to a conference. First off, conferences aren't available, which is kind of why we're doing this. There are online conferences, but that's kind of why I wanted to present this, because there were certain things that I got from a conference that were so rich. They really helped. Number one, you can't teach anything, or you can't teach anything. You can't teach everything. There's no way to read all the books. There's no way to do all the activities that there are to do. So there will be gaps. And just knowing that kind of frees you up from perfectionism. Also, you can teach, and it doesn't matter your education level. It doesn't matter if maybe you had a learning disorder growing up. You can still teach, and you can employ other people who are better skilled in different areas than you are to teach the things that you can't. So just know that. Ooh, I went on a tangent. Let me come back to it. But where was I at? Well, I just wanted you to understand that, that your time is limited, but there's some good articles that talk about teaching homeschool shouldn't take more than about 2 hours. And I know that sounds astronomical. It's like, really, just 2 hours? Yeah, your child shouldn't really have more than 2 hours at a young age of actual teaching and writing and study and practice time. The rest of the time can be spent in the pursuits that really interest your child, or in their entrepreneurial pursuits. I have one daughter who's a baker, and so she spends her free time baking. One who's an artist, she loves to do art. They have music lessons, so they do have to practice the piano. So we're really busy. Another big question we get from folks is are there co-ops? Yes, there are. There are several co-ops. There are lots of activities to be involved with, sports and competitions, but don't make that your first priority. I would say start with your own family. I think it's very important to get your family in a rhythm that's not based on an outside source that's driving you. So instead of being driven by what the co-op does or what activities there are out and about, especially if your children are really young. And I understand they want to be social, they want to get out, and you really want them to have some fun time. If your kids are really little and they are a handful and they do want to get out and socialize, I love outside because there are far fewer rules outside than there are inside. If you'll notice, we don't yell at our kids nearly as much when they're running and screaming outside as we do when they're inside. So, plan play dates. My goodness, they don't have to all be very scheduled, structured activities. So, let that just kind of sink in to you moms who are used to having your children, your really, really young 3 and 4-year-old children in activities. So I'm just going to say, yes, there are co-ops. You can inquire about those on the Facebook page, and I would do that, but I would also kind of wait, because a lot of them are built for families that have older kids, because that's when the curriculum gets more structured. So yeah, but as far as activities, you won't be able to accomplish them all. There are just so many. 4-H, we should have a new PSIA group, because Mahal is just not going to like that anymore. So we need a new PSIA leader, which is a private school and homeschool competition. It's kind of the equivalent of UIL.
Yeah, that was fun.
Oh, it was fun. It was fun. It's a great getaway too. Can homeschoolers compete with district? And the answer is no. In Texas, at least, no. Our homeschoolers don't compete academically or in sports with the public school kids, and you need to know that. The reason is that Texas doesn't have regulations over homeschoolers. You set the curriculum, you set the goals, you're the teacher, the principal, and the boss. And because there's no structured or there's no regulation on us, the school districts say, well, we don't know if your child's actually achieving, so we don't count them as part of the district. So that's the reason behind that. And we Texans we're okay with that, because it means more freedom for us personally, but it also means more work. So as a homeschooler, it means that if you want your kid to do sports, and you have to sign them up for City League, and you have to coach, or you have to do you have to set up the game. So it's more work, but you know what? If it's important to your family, then yeah, you'll do it. But the one place that homeschoolers can compete academically is, like I said, PSIA. It's private school. What is the?
Oh my goodness! Don't ask me. We just got PSIA. I have to. Yes. Someone asked me that. I'm like, yeah. But it's kind of like and also spelling bee. Our homeschool team always dominates the spelling bee. They were happy when we stopped. They're like, are you participating too? No. So that was
That's
fun.
funny. All right. Last off, homeschool moms or new moms, I want you to stay connected. Stay connected with your friend group and other homeschool moms. Keep asking questions because a lot of times we're busy and it's not like we don't want to be accessible. It's just we get a little lost in our homes and our daily routines, and we need somebody to kind of press us to ask questions. I've had to just spur myself to get started on these videos. I'm really uncomfortable. I'm actually very uncomfortable being on camera or in front of a camera, but doing it for you.
You're doing a great job.
I'm imagining that because I've had several conversations now with moms who are considering this, and that I really feel driven to do this. So this will be the first of hopefully many videos. Now, handling littles, I think I covered that pretty well, but little kids, little bitties, one of the best tips I got was to have a school box, a special box that's just for them with lacing cards and counting bears and lots of really fun hands-on things that they can play with while big siblings are doing school. And that will keep them more or less out of trouble. But, you know, I had 5 in 6 years, so we had lots of trouble when we were trying to do school. It's okay. It's okay to have to nurse the baby. Read a book while you're nursing the baby. Ask the kids to read you a book. So here's an idea. Get your Aesop's Fables out, tell the story, and then have one of your older ones tell it back to you. That's school. Have them count things in the book, like look at the pictures and count the things, identify letters or objects. I love good illustrated books because there's usually a lot more there than just the words. The pictures have a lot in there too to interest you. So when you're handling littles, you know, take it one day at a time because it really will end so fast. So fast. I have 2 daughters that are now going into high school, and they're doing an online high school. We're not doing all the books now because I'm so ADD, and I thought I didn't want them missing things. Plus, one of my children in particular has to have a checklist. Has to, or will not get all their stuff done. So having it online is a really good tool for me to make sure that they're getting all of the work done that they need to get done in time. Because even though you don't have to follow you don't have to follow a school schedule. I keep telling them, remember, you have 12 months out of the year. You don't have 9. It's not 180 days of school. It's 365 days of school. You pick the schedule. Some of my friends, they have a Tuesday through Saturday week or a Monday through Thursday week. That you make it up how it works for your family, how it works for your job situation, and that kind of thing. And because I know you're probably sitting there overwhelmed, like, what do I do? Well, don't try to do everything all at once. On August 15th, just do a few things. And I would say read together, maybe do your language arts, which would be, if you're younger, that would be your reading program. Do math and maybe something else, but that's it. So I call that a slow start. And slow start in school, I realize, means that in the morning the kids come into school and they're all kind of groggy. But for homeschoolers, I would say those first few weeks, don't try to do six subjects. Through the summer, we actually do school through the summer, but we don't do everything in the summer. We have our Bible reading time, we do math, and then my kids kind of fill in those electives that got neglected during the year. So if we need to focus on spelling, we'll focus on spelling, or if we're really studying, like right now we're studying the Middle Ages and kind of getting into the Renaissance. So we're reading a little Shakespeare, and everybody cringes, but that's okay. I don't care. Just, they're still gonna listen, and eventually it'll get better. And that's the thing. Eventually, all of this will get better. I promise. And but it will take a while. So consider the long haul, and that's my final challenge to you. Consider the long-term goal, and enjoy the process along the way. So, Mahal, do you have anything to add?
No, I just want to like echo what you said about like reaching out to someone. When I started homeschooling, I was so terrified. I was just so scared. And then one teacher, just not even a homeschooling mom, but one teacher, just really sat down with me and encouraged me and said, if there's anything that you cannot teach or like you're having a hard time teaching, like I would love to meet with you once a month and just kind of go through what you're doing. And that did it for me. That gave me so much courage. And I didn't even access her help throughout the school year, but just someone sitting down with me and assuring me that they'll be there in case I need help. That meant the world to me. And so like usually towards the end of the school year, I always post on my Facebook, if there's anybody thinking about homeschooling, I would love to sit down with you and just kind of, just like what you said, just kind of look at our day. And it's not going to be an average typically because every day is different. But just for someone to sit with you, that's so important. And there's a lot of homeschooling mamas that would love to do that with you guys. So if you're not feeling, oh, bro, I can't do this, like it is very doable. It is the most amazing thing. Like I'm the only regret that I have in homeschooling, I didn't start it, from the beginning. And so I encourage you to, pray about it and, reach out to us mamas if you need that support, because we're here. Yeah. There's a lot of families that would love to help out. So,
yeah. Well, Mahal, I really enjoyed making this video with you.
It's so good.
And it's good to see you too.
All righty. All right.
Thank you, whoever is out there, for joining us today.
All righty. All right. Are we good?
All right. Yeah.
Bye. You did so good, Erin. Thank you.
Thank you.